Well, good morning. I hope everyone is having a good Wednesday. This is Steve Ramirez. I want to welcome you to my Inner Circle blog, where I talk about Southern California sports. And today I thought I would recap the weekend's activities. All four SoCal major football teams were in action. Well, technically three, but we'll include the Rams, who started this season on Thursday. And let's kind of get into it here. The Rams, who won the Super Bowl last year, were dealt kind of an early dose of reality, losing to the Bills 31-10. Not a bad loss, since the Bills are considered by many as the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year, but just the way it happened. I think most people, me included, thought if the Rams were to lose, it would be a close game, but they were thoroughly dominated for most of the game. They did manage to tie it 10-10.5, but were thoroughly dominated in the second half. They gave up 413 yards, gaining only 243 themselves. Quarterback Matthew Stafford threw for over 200 yards and had a touchdown, but he was constantly harassed. The offensive line did not play well at all. I think Darrell Henderson had only 47 yards rushing to lead the Rams. And the line gave up seven sacks. Stafford was sacked 7 times. That's the highest opponent sack total against the Rams since Sean McVay became coach in 2017. And this is his first opening game loss. Just a couple things to break down. Like I said, the offensive line did not play well. Stafford didn't particularly play well, even though he did throw for over 200 yards, which is kind of modest in today's NFL. New wide receiver Allen Robinson, who everyone was expecting a lot from, only had 2 targets and caught one of those for 12 yards. That's got to change if this team is gonna do anything this year. Cooper Kupp had his usual game, which we saw a lot last year. He had 13 receptions for 128 yards and a TD. But they're gonna have to get more out of that other wide receiver slot, and maybe when Van Jefferson returns from injury, that'll open things up. But it just didn't look good the other night. Like I said, the offensive line did not play well. And I'll give Joseph Noteboom, who's replacing the retired Andrew Whitworth. He was going up against Von Miller. We saw what Von could do in last year's playoffs. He's still one of the top pass rushers in the game. So we'll see how Noteboom improves. He did get slightly injured in the game, but he's expected to play this Sunday. Center Brian Allen was not so fortunate. He's out between 2 to 4 weeks with a knee injury. He's going to have a procedure, and I think he'll be back in 2 to 4 weeks. Reserve running back Kyron Williams was hurt on a kick return. He has a high ankle sprain, and he will be out 6 to 8 weeks. That's kind of a big hit, since they were looking for him to be a good third down back, catches the ball well out of the backfield, and has speed and strength. Next up for the Rams is the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday at SoFi Stadium. The Falcons are 0-1 after losing down the stretch to the Saints by a 27-26 score. I think it's a game the Rams should win, but we'll see where they are, see how the offensive line can play. They won't be under such stress, I think, against this Falcons defensive line, and we'll see if we can have Stafford spread the ball out a little bit more. It's got to get Robinson into the game plan, and they have to run the ball a little bit more. Okay, moving on to the Chargers. they started their season with a 24-19 victory over the Raiders at SoFi Stadium in a game that a Raider fan takeover in that game, from my understanding. But a good opening win from the Chargers. Every game in the AFC West is just going to be a tough game. All four teams can win the division, and even you would be surprised if any one of those teams was in the Super Bowl. But a good opening day for quarterback Justin Herbert, 279 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. New acquisition, pass rusher Khalil Mack had the game-clinching sack on a sack of Derek Carr on 4th down as the Raiders were driving to win the game. So if you're a Charger fan, you had to be happy to see that. Next up for the Chargers, they are at Kansas City facing the Chiefs on Thursday night. First big Thursday night game of the year. In some sense, it's you want a Thursday night game. You want a big game like this, but I know how it's hard for the teams coming just back on 3 days rest, hardly any preparation time and recovery time from any type of slight injuries that they may have. The Chiefs started big with a 44-21 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Patrick Mahomes looked his usual self. Some people are wondering if he was starting to slip after not playing well in the second half in the AFC Championship game loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. But he was as good as he's been in recent years. He threw for 360 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that's going to be a good game. And they played last year at SoFi on a Thursday night, and that was a pretty good game, won by the Chiefs. We move on to the college ranks, where UCLA improved to 2-0 with a 45-7 win over Alabama State, kind of as expected. UCLA didn't even cover; they were favored by 50 points. You knew that wasn't gonna happen, especially the way Chip Kelly managed the game. Played a lot of players, got a lot of players in there who normally don't play. I think I counted 4 quarterbacks in the game, 6 running backs, and I think 6 or 7 wide receivers. And same on defense. They played a lot of guys on defense. Star running back Zach Charbonnet did not even play at all. Quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson only played a quarter. So, but UCLA did play extremely well, as you think they would, even playing so many players who don't have a lot of experience. But they did get 465 yards total offense and 220 on the ground. Chip Kelly team is always going to run the ball well, and they did that. Next up for UCLA is an 11 a.m. Saturday morning game at the Rose Bowl against South Alabama. South Alabama, member of the Sun Belt Conference, and Sun Belt Conference got some note this past weekend with Appalachian State upsetting top 10 Texas A&M at Texas A&M. The Sun Belt Conference has produced some pretty good upsets in recent years, so UCLA will have to be on watch for that. Thing about the Jags, they're 2-0, coming off a 38-24 win over Central Michigan last week. They held the ball for 38 minutes, and of note, they ranked second in the nation in time of possession at 37 minutes a game. So that's something that UCLA is going to have to focus on. Even though they did play a lot of players last week, their defense did not look well. They gave up 223 passing yards, so that's going to be a concern. Their defense is kind of the key to their team. I think their offense will be fine throughout the year, and the question is whether they can stop people. So this is going to be a pretty good challenge for them, since South Alabama has shown that they can move the ball in their first 2 games. Obviously not playing any Power 5 teams, but it should be It's a good test for UCLA, especially their defense. Moving on, USC improved to 2-0 with a 41-28 victory over Stanford. Game not quite as close as the score. USC led 35-7 at one point, 35-14 at halftime, I believe. They gained 505 yards, 341 in the air, and scored on their first five possessions with relative ease. I think Jordan Addison had a 75-yard touchdown reception. So that the elite athletes that they brought in on the offense have really shined in these first 2 weeks. If there is a concern with USC, it's how their defense has given up yards. They gave up 441 yards to Stanford, and this is not the best of Stanford teams. Stanford kind of struggled last year. They had a really down year. Thought that they would be improved, but they're still a step back in the conference, probably a mid to 7 or 8 finish in the conference this year. I think, you never know, but that's kind of the projection by most. But Stanford was able to get 220 yards on the ground. That's a concern for USC's defense, because Stanford in the first half they matched USC drive for drive. They had chances to score touchdowns, but a couple of turnovers killed a couple of those drives. So they were able to move the ball well against USC throughout the game. So that's a concern. That's something where USC has to improve. We'll see if they will improve. But Lincoln Riley's teams at Oklahoma were not really known for their defense. They're just were known for just racing out to big leads and scoring a ton of points. And when they were beaten is when their offense was slowed down and their defense just wasn't able to stop teams. Next up for USC is they host Fresno State at the Coliseum, 7:30 p.m. on Saturday. The Bulldogs come in 1-1 after losing to Oregon State, 27-26, giving up a touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown run at the game's end. Oregon State's coach Jonathan Smith, a Glendora graduate, decided to go for the win. Excuse me. Decided to go for the win rather than try to win it in overtime. Fresno State certainly can move the ball. They have a pass happy offense. Quarterback Jake Hayner is one of the top quarterbacks on the West Coast and probably will get drafted. So he'll be on an NFL squad next year, I believe. I think they can keep it close, but at the end of the day, USC should be able to win this game. And they might win it by double-digit scoring. We'll see. Just wanted to close out with a couple look back at some of the things that were happening in the NFL over the weekend. The Texans tied the Colts. I believe that was 2020. I think that's what the score was. Just kind of remember off the top of my head here. But Texans coach Lovie Smith took some backlash because they had a chance. Well, they had it fourth and about 5 or 6 at midfield with about 20. I think there was 26 seconds left to go in the game in overtime, and rather than try to push it and try to go for the win, he decided to do the safe thing and punt it, basically ensuring the game was going to be tied. It's possible, if they don't get that first down, the Colts can throw a pass or to kick a long field goal. But it might take, I could see either side. The Texans are they're tied with the team that expected to win the division. and even getting a tie is kind of a plus. But you also want to see teams go for the win in that scenario. And then on Monday night, the Broncos, one of the teams that some have picked to win the AFC West, lost to the Seahawks, who by many are predicted to finish last in the NFC West. Score of that game was 17-16. Key point in that game was the Seahawks also had it about midfield, 4th and 5, with just under a minute left. Decided to, or Coach Nathaniel Hackett decided to run the clock down to about 20-something seconds left and try a 64-yard field goal. That didn't kind of make a lot of sense to me. The fact you trade a lot of draft capital and then sign Russell Wilson to a big contract. You bring him in for moments like this to perform at the end of games, to win games, and to not trust him, trust a kicker, very good kicker, but 64 yards. I think that would have been the second longest in the league, and only the third kick of 63 yards or more. So the chances of him making that, I think, were slimmer than Russell Wilson gaining 5 yards with a minute left and chance to move the ball inside the 40 for a more reasonable kick with higher odds. Didn't like that decision at all. But we'll see where the Broncos go. You know, they're still a very good team, and I think they'll be in the hunt for the division title. On to baseball. Just wanted to touch on the Dodgers. They had clinched the playoff spot on Monday night, and as I tape this on Tuesday night, they're looking to clinch the NL West tonight. They're gonna win the division, obviously. The question is in the playoffs, and right now they have injuries to the pitching staff. Tony Gonsolin, who's had a phenomenal year, he has an arm injury right now. They're trying to manage it by giving him rest, and I guess he had a bullpen session the other day. They had to cut it short because his arm was starting to hurt. His injury was starting to hurt, and he's going to have another session on Wednesday, or basically tonight, and we'll see where that goes. But I wouldn't expect him to pitch until the postseason. They may give him a start if he's capable of before the season, but I think before the end of the season. But I think they're going to try to see how he is going into the playoffs. Also, Blake Trinan, reliever, had to be put back on the IL. He's not going to pitch before the playoffs, I don't think. He has tightness in his throwing shoulder, and they're just being overcautious here. But if they don't have him, and without Gonsolin, it's going to be really tough for them to do well in the playoffs, I think it's still possible. They have a lot of good arms in that bullpen, and Craig Kimbrell has pitched well the last week or so. So we'll see where that goes. Also, there's talk of whether starting and playing Cody Bellinger in the playoffs is a good thing. I think it is. He's the best defensive outfielder in center fielder, best defensive center fielder in baseball. Run prevention is a big thing in the playoffs, and he's also a clutch hitter. He had the big home run in 2020 against the Braves in the championship series, and had the big hit to knock out the Giants in the divisional series last year. So how he plays defense, and he has that ability to really get a big hit, I think you want to see him in the lineup. So those are my thoughts for right now on the weekend and looking forward. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time.